Good evening, and welcome to another edition of LIVRESQ Empower Your Teaching. We're here to learn about LIVRESQ. We've already reached, I don't actually know how many editions so far, and it's good to be able to talk to you again and to show you more features of LIVRESQ. This meeting is going to be held in English, and we're also being broadcast live on Facebook. But if you're catching this later, you might be able to catch us on YouTube as well, because the recording of this meeting will be posted in YouTube. What's really important to know is that if you have any questions, if you're on any of our social media platforms and you see this later and you have any questions, you can ask them in the comments and we'll answer them. Because we always like to say that LIVRESQ is built with the help of our users and with the help of teachers. So your feedback and your questions really help us cater the tool better to your needs and help us understand what you need and help us deliver that directly to you. So without further ado, I'm going to start sharing LIVRESQ, the platform, and we're going to dive into learning about quizzes because this is what we're here to do today. I've sort of shown you in the previous meetings a few things about how to create quizzes, and especially in the in-video question tutorial, I've shown you how to include a quiz inside a video. And I was telling you then that we have a lot of options for quizzes, and this is what I want to talk to you about today, because it's simple to use, and we always like to say that LIVRESQ is a simple tool to use, but it has a lot of options, and it's a good idea to sort of see a tutorial, to have someone explain all these options to you so that you know exactly how to use each of the features that we provide to you. So I'm going to start from the beginning and create a new project from scratch, not from a template this time, just so that we can add quizzes slowly to that project, and I can go over all of the options for the quizzes and show you sort of how we've designed them and what you can do with them and how you can add them to the lessons. So I'm going to start by creating a new project. And I just want to remind you that we have 3 types of elements in LIVRESQ, and those are projects, sections, and resources. A project is essentially your lesson or your ebook, or essentially any type of e-learning content that you want to create. And that project is divided into sections, and you can have as many sections as you want. Some consider the sections like subchapters or chapters of a whole of a lesson. Others consider them pages. Essentially, they are HTML pages inside of a larger project or website. And inside each of these sections is where we add the resources. So everything from images, texts, quizzes, which we're going to talk about today, and anything else, any interactive resource, including apps from outside of LIVRESQ, are added in your section or in your pages. So if we want to create a new sort of project, a new lesson, we can begin from any of these elements. We can start by creating a new section and then adding it to a project, or we can start creating a new resource. However, the way we usually go about it, so that it's very inclusive, is we start with the project. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to click here. So after you log into LIVRESQ and you go to the author, this is the main screen. And in order to start working in LIVRESQ, you can click create a new project. And this window pops up where you have the option to select either a template. You can see all the templates, or a new blank project, which is how we're going to work today. But we will dedicate one of these meetings to explaining what the templates look like and how you can use templates. But right now, let's start with a blank project. I'm just going to click it once, and then it will take me to a random project that I've just created. It numbered it because this is, so it says 31, project number 31, because that's how many new projects from scratch I've started in LIVRESQ. If you've worked with your projects, you'll basically have a smaller number there. And automatically it generated a section for me because we need all of these elements. All projects have sections, at least one. And inside of that section, as I mentioned before, is the place where we add the resources. Now, I also really enjoy saying that you need to know just 3 gestures to use LIVRESQ. And if you've participated to one of these webinars before, you've probably heard me say it before. But for those of you who are new, I'm going to say them again. So the 3 gestures you need in order to use LIVRESQ: single click, double click, and drag and drop. With a single click, we select something. So if I wanted to select this section, I just click it once and it's selected. I have a few options here. I can either cut it, copy it, delete it. And this bar generally provides me with options regarding what I can do to a selected element. And if you want to edit something, you double click. So if I wanted to go into edit mode for this section, I would double click it, which I'm going to do right now. Now that I've double clicked it, I'm basically inside the section editor. And this is where I drag and drop elements and resources directly to my section. And the place where I get resources from is on the left here. I can either add structure elements, and I'm going to very briefly mention the structure of a resource in a second, and actual content, which can be a text, an image, videos, quizzes, which we're going to do right now, accordions, tabs, avatars, or speech, and other resources. And our plan is to take them one by one and to keep talking about them as we move on through these meetings. Just a quick reminder before I go on, these meetings happen twice a month on Thursdays. We have them in Romanian as well, that they happen every Tuesday. So it's sort of the counterpart of the Tuesday meeting for Romania in Romanian is this meeting in English, where we hope to reach as many of our international friends as possible. Okay, so this was a little promotional moment. If you want to find out when our meetings happen, you can like our Facebook page and follow us there, or you can register for the newsletter in English on the LIVRESQ website, and it's really easy to find. If you need indications, we'll also leave a link in the comments of the Facebook live transmission. Okay, so again, in order to add content, we drag and drop. In order to select something, we single click. And in order to edit something, we double click. And I've mentioned that we can add either elements of structure or elements of content or actual content to our lesson. And I promised just now that I was going to tell you about this sort of structure. What are structural elements in LIVRESQ? Basically, all sections can contain an unlimited number of rows. And if I click on the gray rectangle here, this is a row. The platform tells me it's a row. If I click it, I select it. And rows will come right up one after the other, and they will be arranged vertically. Inside a row, we have cells. And cells will be arranged horizontally. So if I wanted to have more than one cell inside a row, I can just drag and drop from the structure side a row with 2 cells. Right now, if you can see there, this is the orange rectangle, the cell. I have 2. I can use this menu that pops up once I click to select the cell to either delete it, move it, find out which row it's on. That's what select parent means, to view it. Now, if I duplicate it, another cell will appear inside my row. And I can do this as many times as I want. This basically helps me structure my content into columns. And that's because the place where I add my resource is inside each of these cells. So if I wanted to add a text, I would just drag and drop it from the left inside my cell. The reason why these were created is to allow the platform to make the design responsive. Because if you're viewing the lesson on a mobile phone, for instance, or if the students are viewing the lesson on a mobile phone, all these cells will be distributed one after the other. You can preview what your project would look like on a mobile phone by using this button here. And sort of now you can see that the cells come one under the other. So it's easier to view, so it's responsive. So inside of each cell, we can add resources, the actual sort of bread and butter of our lessons. I'm going to delete some of these cells. If I wanted to change the size of the cell on a row, I can use this little square here and sort of decide which percentage of the row I want the cell to occupy. And this is sort of how LIVRESQ works. So we have projects, sections, and resources. And inside of a section, we have rows, cells, and actual resources that we add inside cells. Now, if you want to drag, for instance, a quiz, because finally we will get to that point, you can just drag and drop the quiz inside of your project, and it will automatically create a row and a cell for you. And this is what it looks like. So right now we've added, just like I added this text resource, which I'm going to delete. I can also delete the cell it was in. Right now I added a quiz. And the way I edit all of the resources is by double clicking them. So if I double click this quiz, I am now into edit mode for the quiz. And this is where we'll be playing for the remainder of our meeting. This is, and actually we will view what we're doing, and we'll keep adding more and more quizzes so that you can see what they look like and what you can do with them. So the first thing you want to do when you're creating a new quiz is selecting the type of quiz that you're creating. And we have a wide range of types of quizzes that you can choose from. The most common ones are multiple and single choice. These are very common. They're very easy to use. I'm going to start with single choice. It seems more logical to me that way. So I'll just click on single choice. And then the platform tells me what I have to do at each step. Basically, it's all about replacing resources in texts that is already there. So for instance, here it says write a question or a requirement. Obviously, I'm going to double click, delete this text, and write my question. For instance, what is the opposite of the word, hold on, sad? And where it says options is the place where I write my options for the questions. And then as you can see here, I'm the one who selects which option is correct. So I can write like a few options. Let's see. Sorrowful, we'll just add sorrowful. Happy and beautiful. Obviously, the correct answer here is happy. I'm the one who selects it. I can also provide the student with feedback. And this comes up. So if they choose a certain answer, whether it's the wrong one or the correct one, I can add feedback. The platform can say something to the student, but I'm going to show you that in a minute. Right now, what I've done is ask a simple question or a question. It can work with more complicated things according to what you need to design. I've given 3 options. I've told the platform which one is correct. The other option I can add more options, obviously, by clicking on this plus sign here. If I don't want more options, I can just remove the item so whenever I select this, whenever I'm hovering over this 4th option, the option to remove it appears. So I can just use that to remove it. And this little check mark for shuffling options means that whenever the question is displayed, the order of the options will be different. So if I click this, every time a student opens the lesson, the order will be different. Obviously, if we just have 3 options, there aren't many possibilities. But if you have more options or if you have a different kind of quiz, it can really change things around. So I'm just going to leave this unchecked. because the most important thing about LIVRESQ quizzes is not how we build them, but what we establish as the purpose. And for this, I'm going to draw your attention to the right side of the screen where we have some properties. You have some options regarding design here, and then some options regarding the way a quiz behaves in an LMS platform. But the most important one when creating a quiz is the purpose. And in LIVRESQ, we have three purposes: learning, assessment, and survey. We're going to start with learning, which basically is what it sounds like. It's a type of quiz that gives the student the opportunity to learn and find the correct answer. So the platform provides them with instant feedback when they make a mistake and sort of allows them to find the correct answer. Right now, by default, my quiz is on learning. I have this little button on everything I do in LIVRESQ, the preview, the view mode, or the little eye as we like to call it. And this will allow me to view what the quiz will look like in my lesson. And that's what we're going to do now. So right now, if I click on a wrong option here, nothing much will happen. The platform will tell me that the option is wrong, and it will wait for me to find the correct answer and move on. So this is what a quiz in learning looks like in learning mode. If I change the purpose, however, to assessment, I already have more options here in terms of scoring, in terms of the number of attempts that I'm willing to let my students take this quiz. So if I just want them to have 2 or 3 tries, I can select this here. I can show them the solve button, or I can show them or disable the retry or the reset button. So all of these are additional options because now the purpose of my quiz is assessment. So what does it look like? If I go to view mode, I can just select one option now, and the button there's a button that popped up that's called verify. So I lock in my answer, and only after I've locked in my answer, the platform will tell me whether it's correct or not. So if I click verify now, the platform tells me that my answer is wrong. And because I checked this here, show solve button, I have the possibility to keep pressing and hold here in order to see the correct answer. But of course, you can hide this, and your students won't know what the correct answer is. You'll also be able to hide this try again option. It all depends on how you want to use this quiz and what type of assessment you need it for. And the third purpose of quizzes is survey. And if we select survey here very briefly, you can already see that we no longer have the correct, we can no longer pick the correct option because that's not the purpose of an assessment quiz, of a survey quiz. So what it's doing is collecting information. There is no right or wrong answer. It's just an option that the student can choose from a list. So it's pretty intuitive so far. The way you choose or the purpose you choose for your quizzes depends a lot on where you are in the lesson and on what you want to do with that quiz. For instance, the way I use it is in the beginning of the lesson. I actually like using quizzes to teach certain concepts, and that's when I set them to learning. So I can let the student discover what the correct answer is. As I move on through the content, and maybe I'm coming up towards the end or after I've explained a certain concept, then that's when I choose assessment and I get them to lock in their answer, and it sort of feels like an assessment to the user or to the student as well. And this is a single choice, a very simple type of quiz. If I click on add item down here, I'm basically creating like a gallery of quizzes. My questions will come one after the other, and I'll show you in a minute exactly how this works. So multiple choice means that more than one of my options is correct. Again, I have the option to write a question or a requirement. I'm going to write the question, which of the following are cities. And then question mark, and we're gonna write a few options here. United States, the United States of America. Brazil. And then let's write two correct options. Paris and Rome. Again, I'm the one who selects the correct options, except now the platform allows me to select multiple. Here, I can only select one. It's a single choice, and this is a multiple choice. Let's try adding feedback this time. And I'm going to add very simple versions of feedback, but this is where you can actually explain to the student why what they've entered is maybe wrong. So if you have more complex, and obviously you might have more complex questions than these, this is a really good tool to explain to them why a certain answer is not correct. What I've seen it, and I've seen a lot of teachers do this, however, you can also write like a simple message, something like try again, which works, for example, if my quiz is on learning, or keep trying, or not quite. Let's try it not quite. And we're going to write here, good job. And again, good job. Obviously, this isn't quite a long explanation, but you could explain a certain concept based on the mistake they make, or actually tell them good job, or explain why something is in a certain way once they've selected a correct answer. Now, if I preview this sort of gallery of quizzes, I still get my first question, which is the one we've created. I'm on learning, so in order to look at the next question, I get a button now, which is continue. I click continue, and I get my second question. And if I check the United States of America, I get this little question mark because I've added the feedback. And when the user or the student hovers over this question mark, they get my message, the feedback that I've provided to the platform. Then if I select Brazil, they get the same message, not quite. Try again, not quite. In Paris, good job. Rome, good job. And in order for the quiz to be completed, we need to unselect the incorrect options. So in order to exit the view mode, I haven't mentioned this before, we click on it again. It's very intuitive in that one click to view and another click to exit. And once we're in view mode, the button turns blue so that it shows you that it's active. We're going to exit again. So this is one very simple example of a quiz, two quizzes actually, or a gallery of quizzes. Now, the way I'm going to add and tell you about the rest of the quizzes is by adding them under this one so that they're easier to follow. We don't need to preview the entire gallery in order to see what we've done. So I'm going to leave this, return to my section. As you're editing your project and your resources, this is the path you're on. Sort of the platform always tells you exactly where you are, in which project, in which section, and which resource you're editing. And in order to return back to this section, you just need to click section number 1, and you're back inside the section with everything that you've been editing. I'm going to change the title on this bar over here. This resource bar shows me that it's an interactive resource. And the more you work with LIVRESQ, the more you'll understand exactly why this is. You can hide it. So once I select, I click my quiz once, it's selected. I can access its properties from the right-hand side. And this is where I can hide the resource bar, and I'll just have the quiz inside the lesson. I'm going to leave it showing and write the title of the resource. So single or multiple choice. And now let's add another quiz inside the same cell this time, because we can do this very easily. So I'm on this row. I can click on it once. It's gray. In this cell, I have one resource, the quiz, and I'm going to drag and drop another quiz to the same cell. There we go. In order to edit this quiz, I'm going to double click it. And this time I'm going to choose another type. Let's choose a drag and drop since I've kept mentioning this action. So drag and drop is a type of quiz that allows the student to take one item and move it to another place. And the system that we're using in order to create these drag and drop sort of items is these types of brackets, which correspond to the options. So what's written under option number 1 will go into the bracket featuring number 1. So let's start with the beginning and write a question or a requirement. And the requirement will be drag and drop the items into the appropriate place. And now we'll just use the sort of pseudocode to craft an article. So let's see that option number 1 is a city, and option number 2 is a country. So whatever I write under 1 here, and this is the sort of code I use to make the connection between the two, is going to go here. And whatever I write under number 2 here is going to go in this place. So we need a city. We're going to use Paris. And we're going to use, let's say, Germany. Germany is a country. I can add more numbers. Let's say 3 is a flower. I've written the code here, and I need to add another option corresponding to 3 by using the blue button here. And we're going to say the rose, very, very basic answers, is a flower. We'll see in a second what it looks like. Here we can provide feedback for when the student places the item correctly or when they place it in the wrong place incorrectly. I can add more options using this and then writing them in my text. I can shuffle the options. I can have them appear one by one, or I can change where they appear. So they can either be on the right-hand side, on the top, on the bottom of, or on the left of my text. Once I hover over this first item, I can also duplicate it, a very, very useful button. And I'm going to do this just to show you the multiple options in drag and drop. So I'm going to click duplicate. And let's say that this time we'll leave it like this. On the bottom, the options won't be, let's shuffle them because otherwise it's too easy. This time we'll place the options on the top and we'll have them appear one by one. Let's duplicate it again and place the items on the right. And just so that you can see another layout, and we'll leave it like this. Now let's preview our quiz gallery and see what it looks like. So here, this is the requirement that I wrote, and this is my text where I can drag and drop different elements. So I can say I'm on learning, so the platform will provide feedback for me instantaneously. If I say Germany is a city, it will just say no. I didn't give it any feedback, but it'll tell me it's wrong, and it will wait for me to find the correct answer. So Germany obviously is a country, the rose is a flower, and Paris is a city. This is where they appear one by one. So instead of seeing all of the 3 items all together, they appear one by one. So Paris is a city. I didn't shuffle the options, so they'll appear in the order that I need to place them in. But you could have shuffled the options and then it wouldn't have been this easy. And finally, they're placed on the right. Now, my quiz is, I'm previewing it on the entire screen, and that's why they're so far away. But inside my lesson, they'll be a little bit closer. And again, I can add the options. I can drag and drop the options to the quiz. Let's exit view mode. One important thing that I haven't mentioned yet, but that I did show a little bit when I mentioned stock photos, is that inside the quiz, whenever you want to edit an item, you have the usual LIVRESQ text editor. which means that you can also add formulas, you can add tables, but you can also add images. So you'll be able to drag and drop actual images. So maybe if we duplicate this again, let's try and use images instead of text here. So I'm going to go here to image, click on add image, and in my stock photo finder, we're going to look for a picture of Paris. I'll click advance just to make it smaller. So once I've added the picture, I've selected it, and I can change its size here. Now it's 200 pixels. It's a little bit smaller. Now for Germany, we can look for a picture of a map of Germany. Here we go. This will do. Try to make it not too small, maybe a little bit smaller, so that we can, here we go. And for the rows, we're again going to cut this text and replace it with an image of the rows. So we'll just look for rows here. Any rows will do. And change the size again. Let's do 150. There we go. So now, actually, let's do 150 for the picture of Paris so that it looks better as well. Here we go. So now we have 3 images. If I preview the gallery of quizzes, I'll go through each question one by one. The rows, Germany. The first 3 questions we've created. Paris, Germany, the rows. Here, where I've placed them on the right. And finally, I can even use pictures. I've seen this used in many different ways by teachers, even for more complicated content. Again, I haven't shuffled the order, so they're in exactly sort of the same order that I want them to appear inside my text. But if you shuffle the order, then it becomes a little bit more challenging. So I can use images in all the quizzes that I create. Okay, so now let's go back to our section. We already have 2 quizzes. I'm going to change the name of this second gallery of quizzes to drag and drop. And I'm going to add yet another quiz, but this time I'm going to add a new row so that we can separate them a little bit. Just to remind you that we can do this. Hold on, it's added it here. We're going to add it above. So right now I have 1, 2, and 3 rows. Here we go. And inside of this row, we have the cell in which we're going to add another quiz. Double click to edit. And let's look at another type. Let's look, for instance, at a drop-down. We're going to take them in order. A drop-down quiz works similarly in types of sort of coding and the logic behind it to a drop-down quiz. But this time, my variant contains more options because it's a sort of a drop-down menu with multiple choices, and the student will have to choose one of them. So it's kind of like a more than one single choice, but with drop-down options. So again, where I have to write a requirement, I will write choose the correct option from the drop-down menu. I'll just write 2 options. Again, very similar to what we've done so far, but the sky is the limit, really. Is a city, and 2 is a country. 1 is here, and right now I have 1, 2 for 2 options, and I can add 3 of them if I wanted. We'll just say Paris, Brazil, and maybe Canada. Obviously, Paris is the city, so I'll let this checked here. I can select more than one correct answers if I wanted to. And for the second one, let's say France, and I'll leave this as correct, but I'll shuffle my options just to make sure it's a little bit challenging. Then we'll say Paris and London. If I preview my quiz now, where I've written one in between brackets, I'll have these three options to choose from. And where I've written two, I'll have these three options to choose from. If I want to add another option, I click on the blue button here. If I wanted to delete one of my options, I just remove the item by hovering over the item with my mouse and then clicking remove. So let's see what it looks like. I'm in view mode now, and basically I have two drop-down menus where I've written my options. And France with the randomized order. And again, my quizzes are in learning. So this is the drop-down, kind of similar in logic to the drag and drop. We already know how to make sort of 4 types of quizzes. I'm going to also change the name of the resource bar into drop-down. Above it, let's add yet another quiz to look at another type. If we double click, we're going to edit it. And let's select the next type, which is reordering. Very useful. The 2 examples that I usually give are for maths, when you want the students to order something in a certain order, or for instance, for chronological orders in history, or anything really that requires ordering. So let's just say order the numbers starting with the smallest. We're going to write a few numbers. Now, the trick here is to write them in the order that you want, in the correct order. So 1, 2, and however many options I write here should be in the correct order. So if I added 3, 10, 28, and 30, this is the correct order. If I change, or this is the order that the platform considers to be correct. And I can either lay out them vertically or horizontally. I'm going to duplicate this so that we'll see both horizontally and vertically. And we can also show index numbers. And again, I'll duplicate it. And I will check this so that you see what it looks like. And now let's check out what we've done. So again, the order that the platform considers to be correct is the order in which we added the items here. So now we're going to go into view mode. And this is what it looks like vertically. I'll click continue. This is what it looks like horizontally. And again, the platform will wait for me to add them into the correct order. And these are the index numbers. So to indicate which is the first, the second, the third, the fourth, and however many items you have. 3, 10, 28, and 30. Again, in order to add a new item, we use the blue button just as we've done so far. And in order to delete an item, we have this little button. Once we hover over the item, we have this little button that's called remove item. And then we have the same order. And this is how it works. So you can either choose vertical layout, a horizontal layout, and you can show index numbers if you want the elements to be numbered. We're going to go back to the section, name this reordering. And we just have a few more to go. I'm going to take another row with a cell, with one single cell, add another quiz here. Double click to edit. And now let's look at open-ended questions. So open-ended questions can be used in multiple different ways. But what they essentially do is provide the user or the student with a box of text in which they can either edit text that was already there or they can add their own input. So we're going to do two types. First of all, we're going to do one in which you can give the student the opportunity to edit what is already there. So for instance, let's say I wanted the student to write, to form a word using letters that are jumbled. Order the letters to form a word. And we're going to use the letters for the word word. It's easier. I can see it in front of my eyes. Let's just say D O W R. And this is the initial content. This is what will appear inside of my box of text. I need to provide the platform with the correct answer if I'm on learning or evaluating. And the most important part for open-ended questions and for fill-ins is to understand that the correct content that I provide the platform needs to be the exact content that the student will, that is the correct answer. So that if I add an extra space, then if the student doesn't add that extra space, the answer will be considered incorrect. So you need to be very, very careful on sort of how you structure these questions. If this is a question with more than one answer, then you can use survey or design it in a different way. Obviously, the only one answer that is correct here, hopefully, maybe there's another word that can be formed, but anyway, I'm looking for the word word. I have the option to provide feedback for the wrong option or for the wrong answer or for the correct answer. We've also added the option to ignore case sensitive. So if they were to write everything in full caps or use different types of diacritics, the answer would still be considered correct. And we're going to first try this with this option. Then let's preview it. So again, I have a text box. Order the letters to form a box. A word. What the student needs to do is delete what is already in the box and write the correct answer. And if they were to have written it in full caps, because I've checked that option, it would still be considered correct. But if they added an extra space, then it wouldn't have been correct. Let's do another one. And this time, actually, let's duplicate this one. And this time, leave it blank. Just provide them with an empty text box. Write the result. One using digits. So they don't use words. Using digits. 1 + 1 equals, and I'm deleting the initial content. The text box will be empty. And the correct content, because I said using digits, is 2. I don't care about diacritics anymore. I can just delete this option. So use this, remove property. Now let's see what this looks like. This is my box of text where I have text and I can just edit it. And this is where I have an empty box of text. So if I write anything else, because I'm in learning, the platform won't let me move on. I'm going to write 2 in order to move on. So the open-ended question provides the student with this box of text. But we have another way to do this, and that's the fill-in, where you actually ask the student to provide you with an answer inside of a text, so inside of a longer item. I've added another row here, and I'm going to drag and drop a quiz. Double click. In order to edit, I'll select fill in. We'll go to the highlight at the end. Write a question or requirement, and this time again, I have these brackets for the corresponding options, except this time my options will, the student will write the correct options using their keyboard. So if I just say fill in the missing information. So this time, it wouldn't really be appropriate to say one is a city because there are a lot of cities that they can write, and there is no way I can think of all of them. So I'm going to use more exact sort of questions because, again, this needs to be ideally, this needs to be an answer that is that can be written in a certain way, in one, maybe two maximum ways, and that works as a single sort of type answer. So let's just say one is the result of 1 plus 1, and 2 is the result of 1 plus 2. Obviously, I'm going to write 2 here and 3 here. So right now, the only way, again, I paid really close attention that I didn't add an extra space here, because if I do, let's see what happens. So I've added 2 and then an extra space. Now, if I preview the quiz, and if my student writes 2 here, the platform will tell them that it's wrong, because what the platform knows to be the correct answer is 2 and a space. And once I've added the space, the answer was considered correct. So I need to go back here and delete the space. Back to view mode, 2 and 3. But I didn't really provide him with the information that they have to write the result in digits. So what happens if I do want to give them another option? For instance, I want them to be able to write the answer in numbers, in letters, using letters as well. So writing 2. I've added another option, option number 3, in which I will write using letters TWO2, and I can add for 1 space. So these brackets represent a space. I can tell the platform that more than one option is possible in that space. So right now, either option number 1 or option number 3 is considered correct for this space here. And let's do the same for 2, or actually for 3. We'll write 3 here. We're going to add a comma. Sorry, not 3, but 4. So right now, if I preview this quiz, I can either write 2 as we've done before, or I can write it using letters, and both options are considered correct. Here, I can write 3. So you can add multiple possible variants in between these brackets, and this works for drag and drop and for drop down too, but for drag and drop especially, by using a comma and putting 2 values inside of the brackets. I hope this wasn't too confusing. I just sort of a more advanced feature, but hopefully it helps you understand sort of the logic of how creating these quizzes work. And finally, if we go back to the section, we're going to add the last type of quiz that you can add in LIVRESQ. So let's add a row with 1 cell, add a quiz inside of it, double click to edit, and add highlight. Now, what highlight allows us to do is identify certain types of elements inside of a text. I've seen it used in languages, especially for instance, in order to identify the part of speech or syntax. But let's try a simple, using sort of the same examples that we've been using so far. Identify the cities and countries. Here I have a series of labels. I won't work with labels yet. We'll add them as after we've written our article, because basically I'm going to delete what's written here, sorry, and write a list of elements. So let's say London, Brazil, maybe Romania, Rose and Paris. And right now, I've asked the student to identify cities and countries, which means that I need to label these elements. The first label is already added. I can select the color of the label. I'll just use the color that the platform provided me and how it will be marked, if it's underlined or not. I can select no underline. Essentially, once the student selects that label, it will be colored in yellow and underlined with a solid single line. And the property, the label sort of that I'm looking for is city. And then I'm going to add another label, and this is going to be country. Automatically, the platform has provided me with the color blue. Again, a solid line, but maybe this time we'll play with it and we'll make it a double line. So if I preview this, for each of the elements in my list, and if you write a sentence, for each of the elements in a sentence, the student can actually, hold on, I haven't marked them. This is my article. So now I have to tell the platform which item in my article corresponds with which label. So if I select London, then I'm careful to just select the word London. Inside of my usual text editor, I have another option, which is called a highlight. When I click highlight, I can select the respective label, either none, city, or country. London is obviously a city. I'll select this. Next, I'll select Brazil, click on highlight, make it a country, select the label country. Good. Then I'll select Romania, select country again. For rows, I'll tell the platform, I don't have to, but I'm going to tell the platform that I don't have any label for it. I haven't defined the label flower. And for Paris, I'm going to select city. So right now, if we go into view mode, once the student clicks on an element of your sentence or of your list, or however you want to structure this, they will have this drop-down menu that will allow them to select what type of element it is, to select the label you've defined. And the difference sort of between a simple drop-down is that they have this highlighting that happens and this underline. You sort of see it in real time. It's more interactive in that you see it in sort of real time, the effect your choices had on the words. Then we have Brazil, which is, if I select none, nothing happens. But if I say it's a city, because I'm unlearning, the platform tells me that it's wrong. So I'll just say country again. Romania is a country again. A rose is nothing. I mean, it's not defined. And Paris is a city. So this is how highlight works. And again, the sky is the limit. There are multiple ways in which you can employ it. So we've gone through all the quizzes. There are options that we haven't discussed because there are more complex options that have more to do with an LMS system. But basically, these are the basics, and even a little bit more, with a little bit of a twist in what type of quizzes you can create in LIVRESQ and how they work exactly. Now, if you have any questions, please ask them so I can hopefully answer them. If not, and again, if you're watching this on Facebook, or if you're watching this and not in real time, if you're watching this on Facebook as a recording, or if you're watching this on YouTube, write your questions in the comment section and we're going to get back to you and answer these questions in writing. If there are no other questions in Zoom now, I will be logging off. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed learning about quizzes, and I hope you'll use them and create really engaging lessons with these quizzes. Thank you so much.